Senior Data Analyst here at Football Outsiders. Joining me, as he does always, is Mike Tanier, Senior Analyst for Football Outsiders. And I mentioned today is Monday, which means another weekend of NFL action is in the books, and you could have access to all of our stats starting today with an FO Plus subscription instead of having to wait till tomorrow. Also with FO Plus, you get all the DVOA ahead of time that you can use that to take advantage of the market inefficiencies early in the week for betting. If you're a media professional or aspiring media professional, you get access to that early for your content that you're producing as well. Get access to premium stats, articles, fantasy rankings, and betting picks as well that you can't get without an FO Plus subscription. Also, Underdog Fantasy, don't forget to play with us and get a free $100 using promo code OUTSIDERS. They've got some user-friendly game formats to spice up the games of Battle Royale, which is a 6-round best ball style draft. Gives you simpler chances to win weekly than traditional daily sites, or their pick'em games, which is basically prop betting on several different players, building a parlay going higher or lower on their stat lines. Again, Underdog's the fastest growing fantasy site around, so join the fun over at UnderdogFantasy.com. They'll double your first deposit up to $100 using promo code OUTSIDERS. Mike, I'm going to quit doing all the talking here and let you turn it over to you here with our first topic today, and that is, and I'm not wearing my Packers gear today. Yeah, it's been rough, but how can the Packers save their season, or can they save it?
Yeah, I noticed that we've suddenly switched to baseball season here. I was going to wear my Phillies gear, but A, I don't have any Phillies gear, and B, my hometown team's 6-0. But we'll get back to the Packers. And
and I'm weird too. People like Packers, Yankees, everything. Being from Louisville, we don't really have pro teams, and I grew up a fan of so many different teams where you've got all your hometown teams, so I'm a little jealous.
Right. Well, that's just it. A lot of times in Philadelphia, we look at the Yankees stuff, especially we look at the Cowboys stuff, and it's like, like front runner much.
Right.
But it's different when you're living in the Midwest where you're surrounded by teams that are 100 miles away that you might not be affiliated with.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah, family affiliation, stepmom's from Cleveland, so this has been a tough series with the Yankees and Guardians now, but I'll be happy either way. But pulling for the Yankees, obviously. But like you said, we'll get back to the topic at hand, and that's what the people are here for. NFL football, the Packers. What's going on?
We're all trying to avoid the Packers. We're all trying to avoid talking about them right now. Their yards per game have gone down in 3 consecutive weeks. Their defense is playing well, but their run defense continues to play poorly. It played poorly against the Jets on Sunday. It's averaging 4.9 yards per rush right now. Special teams DVOA has gone from 3rd to 30th. Well, that's what happens when you have a punt blocked for a touchdown, a field goal blocked. I think they only got like 4.4 yards per punt return. They were getting punts, and they were going nowhere with them. Thordian, I'm sorry, my ADHD picks up. Thordian says that the Cardinals just traded for Robbie Anderson per Ian Rappaport. Hot take, it's the perfect addition for the Arizona Cardinals because what that team needs is a malcontent who is very inconsistent.
And Aaron, it's like Aaron Schatz just tweeted too saying, and I'm sure everyone's kind of wondering this, maybe that Marquise Brown injury is really serious, or because they've got DeAndre Hopkins coming back. So they've got Hopkins, Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore. So maybe that injury is a little bit more serious than we know so far. But maybe they're just making a deal for a guy who's been a playmaker at times. Just got kicked out of the game yesterday by his own coach.
Playmaker at times, and you could hear the rumbling. If you follow him on Twitter, like the rumbling has been happening for the last week or so, right up on the Matt Rule firing. This was a drama, and Anderson was a guy who's going to put himself in drama. So my theory on this, you're right, the Marquise Brown injury might be a problem. This is just Steve Keim being Keim. Like he's a fantasy football GM. He just grabs what's available. I don't have the compensation right now. I'm guessing it's not much, but fascinating little pre-deadline rumbling there. And it successfully derailed me from what were we talking about?
Green Bay Packers, special teams.
Green Bay Packers, special teams, problems. When I look at this team, I realize the defense is still outstanding on 3rd down, still outstanding in the red zone. The offense is very anemic right now, and they're not getting the ball the receivers downfield. I don't have in front of me the yards per completion. I believe it's down 10.1, very low in the league. The air yards are low, etc. And I watch the Packers struggle, and then I watch the Giants, who have nothing on offense. And I watch the Falcons, who I think we're going to talk about in a little bit later on, who have nothing on offense. And they manufacture points. And they do it with pistol formations, heavy backfields, diamond formations, play action going this way and the other, roll out, bootleg, all these things that you do to generate and manufacture when you don't have the weapons. The Packers, I think, have to think like this. It's like, this is not Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and then MVS going downfield. This is Aaron Rodgers and a bunch of guys who need training wheels, and they need to take some of that collegiate, small school, full house, tight formation, backfield logic. The Seahawks do it as well, and use that to get their offense on track. Because right now they are not generating consistent offense again against everybody. But you're the one who watches those games with your heart in your throat every week. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, yesterday's game was ugly. I mean, I kind of put on here talking to that, like, is there any saving the Packers? Because it's been rough. It's just Rodgers looks like physically, his facial expressions looks like Rodgers, but it almost looks like he's kind of checked out at times, which that's just kind of the way he is. But like when things aren't going well, it makes you think, like what is he thinking? Is he there? And the offensive line couldn't block. It seemed like he was under pressure the whole day. Special teams, you mentioned the block field goal, block punt. I tweeted this yesterday. I'm like, if it wasn't time already, I'm now in panic mode on Green Bay. I know we've talked about them a couple times. Like, they're still in it in the division. I think they're in second still. The Bears lost. The Vikings were my pick to win it. It seems like they've got a shot to run away with that division. And I'll be honest, I switched over to red zone at halftime and never switched back over yesterday. Wow. I said, I'm going to see what I need to see on red zone. And turns out the things that I saw are things that I didn't want to see. So I kind of was a bad fan yesterday, got tired of it. And I'm like, I'm just going to switch over because it's bad if it gets good. Maybe I'll come back to it. But I would rather watch red zone than watch that Packers team yesterday. Really the last 2 weeks, second half and then yesterday. It was pretty ugly. And we'll talk about buyers and sellers later on here in a little bit as we get to that. But it's hard to say with Rodgers that they're going to be sellers because I said they still have a chance to win that division, and you can't. He's only got a couple years left. You're not going to waste his years, but at the same time, like it's not looking good right now.
Who are you going to trade?
Exactly. Like Devontae is gone. They're not going to trade any of those defensive pieces.
Right. You trade the defensive pieces, the defense collapse. You trade the offensive pieces. You're talking about a checked out looking Aaron Rodgers, who, by the way, was muttering stuff about sending positive messaging. The guy who goes on every podcast he can find and rants about everything that's on his mind is now going to send positive messages. But you're not going to get positive messages. You trade an offensive lineman or, I don't know, Dylan or whoever you might even be tradable at that point. I'm sorry. Anyway.
Yeah, it's rough. And then you look, Aaron Jones. Dylan got the more carries this week. Jones wasn't doing too well on the ground, but weren't really utilizing him a ton early on, it seemed like. And it's just a lot needs to be fixed, I think, there. I saw a tweet today that was Aaron Rodgers trying to run this offense, and it was the old clip of Peyton Manning with the kids on the field just throwing the ball at their back. Like, get in the portal. Get in there right at 20 minutes. It's like it's bad. It's bad.
Right. I remember this is where I traded thought because I saw Thordian mention the Packers have so much miscommunication. I know somebody who's a Packers expert tweeted that they lead the league in pointing at guys on defense. Like there'll be a miscommunication, and you'll see that's got to get worked. And that, first of all, it's a veteran defense. I know there's a couple of rookies, first round picks. Most of those guys are defensive veterans. They should not be having that kind of miscommunication.
Yeah, and one other thing from this game that we're not really going to have the best and worst decisions this week, but the end of the first half there, Green Bay had 3 timeouts. They're down 3-0. Okay. The Jets had the ball. 1st and 10 at the Green Bay 43 at the 2-minute warning. They get 2 yards on first down. Green Bay doesn't call a timeout. They get 6 yards on third down to get it to 3rd and 2. Still doesn't call a timeout. Ends up stopping the clock, incomplete pass on 3rd and 2. So 4th and 2, they missed the field goal. But you still have all 3 of your timeouts. There's less than 2 minutes. Use them for your offense. Green Bay ends up getting down to, I think, inside the 20. They had 1st and 10 at the 27. 14 seconds left, 2nd and 2 at the 19 with 9 seconds left because they finally used their timeout. The Jets used a timeout there as well. But it's like you could have given a lot more time. So they had 2nd and 2 at the 19, get a first down, 1st and 10 at the 11, but there's 3 seconds left, so they have to kick a field goal. It's like I don't know what LaFleur was doing if he didn't trust his defense to get a stop. He's like, I'm going to call a timeout, give them more time for a touchdown. I don't know, but that was a really bad look there. And then earlier in the game, he declined a penalty to make it 4th and 1 versus like a 3rd and 16 or 3rd and 11, something like that on the Jets. Oh. And I was hoping Saleh would go for it just to make LaFleur look back. Is like it was 4th and 1 around like the Jets' own 45. Maybe he didn't expect Saleh to go for it. But that was another. I'm just like he's making mistakes that he doesn't normally make. It seems like.
Right. That's very strange. And they had a little bit of a problem managing the clock before halftime against the Giants too, if I remember correctly.
I can't even think back that far.
Yeah, it's
I
going to be
tried
a
to block
blur.
it out.
They had a blur. Well, speaking of a blur, Patrick Sealy says that Rodgers needs a bye week with some of the trip and tea. And by the way, Patrick spelled bye week B-I. I don't know what you're insinuating, Patrick, but we want no part of that.
Absolutely. With that, we'll move on to Monday Night Football. So that's a good transition. We've got the Broncos, 4.5-point underdogs at the Chargers, 46-point total on this one. I like the Chargers in this one. I talked about it on the fantasy and betting show with Tom Strachan that we did last Thursday. I've given up on backing the Broncos right now. I've kind of supported them the last couple of weeks. I'm like, you know what? They're going to get it together. They're going to get it together. They haven't. Plus, I just think Justin Herbert is playing better than Russell Wilson. That Broncos defense is very good. I picked last week the Chargers. I think it was at -5 at the time we did our show. I picked the Chargers to cover, but the under. The Broncos are only scoring 15 a game, but they're giving up 16 a game. I think it's going to be tough to get points in this one. What do you think on this one?
I think it's going to be tough to get points in this one. I'm like, fool me 6 times with the Broncos, shame on me. Fool me 7 times with the Broncos, shame on me. I kind of like the points. The points creeped up to 5. I think that's what you cited a moment ago. And as it gets into that zone, I feel a little bit more comfortable with this continually backing the fact that, the Broncos are going to figure it out this week. So I'm going to steer away from that. And I'm also going to say, I apologize. I said right before we came on, I've got a cool prop to throw at you.
Yeah.
They just took it off the board. Like, I just clicked over and went bloop, and the prop disappeared. It involved like Mike Boone as an anytime touchdown scorer.
Okay.
And Cortland Sutton, et cetera. And it was like a big three-legged parlay. But it's gone now. So I'm afraid that piece of content is gone forever.
So not that, but I do have some in here that I pulled up.
Okay.
The first one I'm a little torn on. Justin Herbert's passing yards are at 266.5. I initially went under. It's tough to go under with Herbert, but he's averaging 267.75 yards per game versus Denver in 4 games. He was under 254 in 2 of those 4. Now, the Broncos have only allowed 2 passers to go over 200 yards.
Okay.
Haven't played any great quarterbacks, but Jimmy G went for 211. Matt Ryan, 251 last week, and he got like 36 of them or in overtime. So it's Herbert. It's tough, but that Broncos defense has just been very good this year. I lean the under there, even though I really hate betting unders. But
yes.
There are some that I like there that, I mean, as much as you hate it, sometimes it's a smart play. So I like that one. Again, that's probably the one I'm least confident in, but looking at Herbert there. The other one, Cortland Sutton, over 4.5 receptions. He's got 5 catches or more in 4 straight. The Chargers only 18th against number 1 wide receivers. So I think he's going to be able to get the catches there. Austin Ekeler is heating up lately, and his rushing yards are set at 59.5. He had 173 last week against that bad Cleveland rush defense. He had 60 the week prior against Jacksonville. Now, I mentioned he's heating up. He's carried the ball at least 13 times in 4 or 5 games. Denver's only 17th against the run in DVOA this year. They gave up 62 yards to Deion Jackson on 13 carries last week, 144 on 28 to Josh Jacobs, 75 to Jeff Wilson Jr., 69 to Dameon Pierce, 60 to Rashad Penny all this year. So Austin Ekeler, I think, gets to that at least 60 yards rushing, and that's set at 59.5. And then last one I've got Melvin Gordon, over 13.5 receiving yards. The Chargers are 31st defending passes to running backs. Melvin Gordon had 3 catches for 49 last week, 5 for 29 against the 49ers 2 weeks ago. With Javonte Williams out, I think that's probably my favorite one, is 13.5 receiving yards.
I do like that one. I like that one a lot. Just making the Chargers tackle in the open field. Going back a little bit, you had that under for Justin Herbert, and CCX3 said, what the heck are they going to do with Surtain mothering Mike Williams? And then he changed it to smothering. Between mothering and the BI bye week, it's gotten very Freudian here in the comment threads. I really don't know what's happening on Monday, but a little Freudian slip there. We corrected it. That leans towards the under. It actually goes back to what one of our other listeners said earlier. It's like, boy, the Chargers would have been a good Robbie Anderson place, like in the trade. Like the Chargers could have brought him in, and it's like, you are just go run the 9, and Herbert can just like launch 1 or 2 of them to you per game, and he'd probably be happier on a team that's like closer to contention there. But I like the Herbert under because of that. I like the Cortland Sutton number because I think that there is a little bit of get him the ball, like a mandate to get him the ball in that offense, and he'll get one or two. Oh, here you go. Here's the 3-yard hitch play. The one that I am shying away from of all of them is Ekeler. Most of the backs you named that did well against that defense, they were more battering ram type backs.
Right.
Damian Pierce is more the battering ram type back. I know Jeff Wilson's in there, not so much a battering ram, but they're going to go offset I formation and like try to hand him between the tackles. I would fear on that when Ekeler winds up being screens, flats, rotation. It becomes a pass-heavy offense. So that's the one I'm leaning against. Other ones I really like, though.
Yeah, I'm with that one too. I looked at that, kind of went back and forth. But like I said, I'm kind of riding the hot hand a little bit there with Ekeler. He's been running the ball well lately, so we'll see. We'll see that one. There's no guarantees.
I mean, yeah, it's easy actually. Watching the Browns defense against the Patriots yesterday, I like, what am I watching here? Like, I've never seen multiple guys open. Okay, on the one touchdown, the dude trips and falls, which is not good in the first place. But this guy's open by 15 yards in the open field, bouncing off each other, tackling, trying to make routine tackles. Ekeler did it against that team. I know he's a good ball player overall. Yeah. I just remain wary on that one.
Completely understandable. And like I said, I'm not the ones I'm most confident in. Is kind of same with you, Melvin Gordon and Cortland Sutton. I think are the two most confident, and then Ekeler and Herbert. Said the numbers kind of lean towards Herbert under, but we know it's Justin Herbert. He could go out and throw for 400 yards. Even against Denver.
And you're right. And unders are a matter of taste. It's a matter of taste. Like, I don't want to sit here and root for the game to be less interesting because the quarterbacks throw for less yards. If that's the way you are, play the over or avoid the under.
And that was one thing I mentioned last Thursday with Tom. We're talking about Buffalo, Kansas City. I'm like, there's a lot of points here. I would lean with the over, partly just because I don't want to root for a game like this to be a low-scoring game, even though it ended up coming in 24-20. Right. And, expected a lot of points in that one, so it's not a bad bet to go with the over. But in situations like that, it's like you don't want to cheer for less points when you've got Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes going against each other.
Right. I hope this game isn't that good. Yeah, not really.
Yeah, hopefully you don't want to cheer for one of the last two Thursday night football games in that one. So speaking of Buffalo and Kansas City as well, we'll move on to that. That was the big game of the weekend. What did we learn? We're going to talk about this one and Philly and Dallas. So for you, what did you learn from these two games this weekend?
Absolutely nothing. And that's why when I looked at this, like, well, we should talk about these games because they're such big games, and they were good games. They were quality games in both cases, and come away with it with this feeling that like all we did was confirm. It was like sort of a confirmation Sunday. It's like, are the Bills the best team in the NFL? Yes, they are. Are the Kansas City Chiefs very good and sort of nipping at the heels of the Bills, and maybe at their best can beat them? That's what we saw for most of that particular game, which was a weird back and forth game, despite the low scoring. There were so many yards, so many highlights in that game. It's just you get to the 20 and you go for it and you fail. And then, well, who's the best team in the NFC? The Eagles. Did they prove it? Yes. Are the Cowboys still very good, even though it's mostly their front four? Yes. Was the Cooper Rush quarterback controversy just complete schmuck bait? Yes. Yeah. But you know what? Confirming things is learning something as well, because you come into this game having questions about the Eagles. Can they close out in the fourth quarter? Can they beat a quality opponent? Now you have answers, yes and yes. You have the Bills. Do they really belong in that level? The answer is yes. And that's my takeaway from it. What about you?
You've got actually exactly what I said. Learned that Buffalo and Philadelphia are very good. Buffalo, the cream of the crop in the AFC. And I had here, not so much learned it, but confirmed it is what I had. Although that when Mahomes gets that ball back, 1:04 left, down 4, I think all of us were thinking, all right, here goes Mahomes again. Ended up throwing that interception on the second play. But Buffalo is just the most complete team. They've got the top offense in DVOA, the top defense. They're 5th in special teams. And that's still without Tre'Davious White on defense. He's not back yet. So that defense could get even better. And then for the Eagles and Cowboys, despite the good start, like you said, for Cooper Rush, Cowboys can't win the Super Bowl with Cooper Rush. And Dak will be back next week, or is expected to be. And looking at Philly, 5th in offense, 5th in defense, 25th in special teams. I don't think it's as glaring a weakness as the Packers had last year with that special teams all year. They're definitely in contention, best team in the NFC. So, these two teams are two of the best in the NFL. Didn't necessarily learn that. We already knew it. It was just a confirmation, like you said. So I'm on the exact same page.
Yeah, and you're right about the Eagles special teams. They gave up a kick return, long kickoff return before halftime, led the points, almost led to a touchdown when Noah Brown made this ridiculous catch. He was just out of bounds, led to a field goal. That's a little thing that can be a problem. I don't think it's as much a problem with the punter as it was late last season, but we're going to get in a minute into buyers and sellers. I don't think of the Eagles necessarily as being buyers at the trade deadline, but if you were to bring in like a sharpshooting, either a return man or somebody who's like, I am Mr. Special Teams, like the old Trent Sherfield type of guy to come in here and kind of restore order on those units, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Eagles, by the way, real quick, entering the bye, come out. Steelers, Texans, Commanders, Colts.
Ooh.
Okay.
It goes into exactly what we were talking about last week, looking at the odds, like when will that first loss come? And it doesn't look like it's going to come soon.
Right. They should be 9-1 at the minimum coming out of that. That guarantees a winning record, which pretty much guarantees the playoff spot in the NFC.
Yeah, and you mentioned buyers and sellers, so we'll go ahead and just move into the sellers. Trade deadline motivated sellers. Who do you think should hold a fire sale coming up on the deadline here?
Well, I think we already see that we have a little bit of a fire sale going on with the Panthers, as expected. They, in addition to Robbie Anderson, they traded Cam Irving last week. But my motivated seller, oddly enough, are the Arizona Cardinals, a team that just bought, and I'm using that term necessarily. Yep. They went out there and acquired the rights to Robbie Anderson. This is a team full of veterans. They also have a lot of younger defensive players who might have trade value. Some of the linebackers they picked up along the way who are multi-position guys running around without positions. And this is a 2-4 team going nowhere. Yep. Okay. I like you said, to get Nuke Hopkins back, I think it's too late for that. That this is a team that is last in the league or second to last to the league to the Panthers in average depth of target when throwing the ball. Does not have a very good defense and doesn't seem to be on the same page between the three of them. So this is a team that should be looking to reset. Mm-hmm. And I am stunned that they're going in the opposite direction. Like, no, we're going to bring in another offensive weapon and see what happens.
Yeah, just acquiring weapons left or that's they're just going to get as many receivers as they can get, I guess.
Right. And then the receivers, and then they got a rookie tight end that hasn't been able to see the field yet. They're just loaded at these positions. Meanwhile, I don't think the offensive line plays particularly well. I don't know what they have on defense besides, a couple guys on their line who are playing well, and Murphy at cornerback, and just a bunch of guys, and Buddha, and then just a bunch of runaround guys. And nothing is put together properly. I don't think that the general manager and the coach and the quarterback are on the same page as all. And yet, somebody said on the comment feed, the only way out is through for them. Mm-hmm. They're going to try to shoot their way out of this slump.
Yeah. For me, you said it, the Panthers, I mean, it's obvious, but they're going to be the ones that it looks like they've already started potentially. They've only got 4 picks in next year's draft. They have their second, fourth, and fifth. We know they could get multiple day 1, day 2 picks for guys like McCaffrey, DJ Moore. I don't know what they got for Anderson, but like a mid-rounder potentially for Anderson. And we said a new head coach is coming in, likely going to get the first overall pick and get their pick at quarterback. They're going to have a handful to choose from in a good class, can get some skill position players. The defense has some good young pieces, although I've seen reports that they're open as well to trading guys like Brian Burns, J.C. Horn. Their defense wasn't awful until I think they were like top half or right around middle of the pack until this past week. They really didn't have a bad game, but I think they dropped down into the mid to low 20s at DVOA. They could still sell, but they're the obvious choice, and I think it's going to happen. And it looks like, too, talking in a friend group, talking with our fantasy football yesterday, there was the talk about McCaffrey. He's been the focal point of the offense for so long, but they came out yesterday and just were giving him the ball like on every single play, showcasing him, I guess, because there have been reports that they're looking for multiple first-rounders. Don't think they'll get that much, but they're saying, look what he can do. Here, give us picks for him.
Right. The amount of signaling that's going directly from the Panthers to Schefter's ear or from like the Chiefs to Schefter's ear to try and really stoke up this trade market, because the Chiefs would like to just grab Brian Burns and stick him in their pass rush. And there's other people who are bargain hunting for McCaffrey. And the Panthers really want to get this messaging out there. It's like, no reasonable offer refused, but our definition of a reasonable offer is not your reasonable offer.
It's unreasonable.
I think we're going to talk about McCaffrey more in a moment, but it's ludicrous to think that he's going to get anything but like mid-round, second round maybe, if somebody bites on him, because you're biting on such a large contract. Okay. Burns is somebody who has a lot more trade value. That's the guy who could get that Jamal Adams type deal from a team. Somebody pointed out, a couple people were just going back to the Cardinals real quick. And Hitchhiker's Pie asked, would you fire Cliff on Black Monday? CCX3 asked, well, does that happen with Keim still there? And will Keim still be there? Keim and Kingsbury got recent extensions. Everybody got their financial please, thank you, and sorry from the ownership recently, Murray and Kingsbury and Keim. So ownership has to make a mistake, admit a mistake. That's very unlikely. The three guys who swear they all get along, who very obviously do not get along. And this is a team built out of not the coach, GM, and quarterback on the same page, would have to admit they're not getting along. This could blow up, on Black Monday or whatever.
Yep.
It might not because of the amount of money and like bull snot that's invested in it.
Yep, and Vince Verha and I talked about that too a couple weeks ago. I think Coach Rankings show we're talking about the hot seat and like next coach should be fired. And Cliff Kingsbury always comes up just because the way Arizona's been. But like you mentioned, he just got the extension. They gave him a lot of money. It's hard to see him being let go this year. But crazier things have happened.
Right. I would not bet on a mid-season, in-season firing in any way. They would have to wait till the end, I think.
Yeah. And we'll transition from sellers now to buyers. Who is your most motivated buyer that you think coming up on the trade deadline?
Yeah, I look around at these teams and, the Bills don't need anything. So that would be silly. I mentioned the Eagles, but I don't think they can or will do it because of the cap situation. I circle back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, though. Okay. And we all saw Tom Brady ranting, raving, shouting at his poor offensive line to like be better, because that's very motivational. And one of the reasons why Brady is struggling, receivers have been injured, offensive linemen have been injured. Buccaneers are averaging 3.1 yards per rush right now. Okay. Fournette himself, I think, is at 3.3 yards per rush. He's way down on the standings. I pulled up a stat earlier today. In the red zone, the Buccaneers have run 18 times for 12 yards. Okay, so they're not going backwards, but like they're falling forward 2 feet at a time. That's their running game. And they run the ball a lot. If you look at that offense, it's like they want to give the ball to Lenny. They want to do that on early downs. You talk about a team that could add Christian McCaffrey, and it's logical for where the team sits right now in terms of their, it's not time to buy green bananas. Tom Brady's your quarterback. Do something now at all costs. Somebody like McCaffrey who can do the things that guys like James White and Danny Woodhead and Rex Burkhead and all those other guys, going back to Kevin Falk, used to do for Brady. I got your swing pass. I got your 7 yards. You don't have to worry about the pass rush because you can dump it to me. I think the Buccaneers should be looking for either another receiving weapon or a running back, a speed back like McCaffrey to diversify their offense.
Yeah, McCaffrey, like I said, there's been a handful of teams rumored for him too. The Bills have inquired a couple times about him, but pretty much anywhere he goes, he produces fantasy, talking from a fantasy perspective too. He produces in Carolina, but would be even more efficient on a much better team where it's not like the other teams can just focus all on him. And speaking of too, we're talking about Robbie Anderson, that trade. Looks like coming across now that their fear that Marquise Brown did suffer a potentially season-ending foot injury. So going further testing, but it seems like we were kind of Aaron said that and was right on the lines with that trade for Robbie Anderson.
It still doesn't make a lot of sense. I got to see the compensation. It still doesn't make a lot of sense. So you're going to get Nuke Hopkins back. You've got Rondale Moore. You've got AJ Green, who I think has officially reached the end of the line. But like you've got other guys there that can play. You don't go out and just get another receiver to fill that role. Yeah.
And so coming back to the buyers for me, I kind of looked around and decided I wasn't really sure who I thought was going to be the best fit. I saw you had the Buccaneers there. The Browns are one to me. They're really struggling to stop the run right now. They're 30th in run defense DVOA, 31st in adjusted line yards. Surprisingly, they're number 1 in power run stops, which are third or fourth down and 2 or less plus goal to go from the 2 or closer. But they're bottom 8 in stuffed rank, second level yards allowed, 30th open field yards allowed. Vince mentioned this last week as well. Their 2 safeties are second and third leading tacklers. They really need some help on the defensive line, helping to stop the run. The pass, they were 13th against the pass until this past week. They were missing Denzel Ward, which kind of maybe explains some of that, but they also gave up 309 yards and 2 touchdowns to Bailey Zappi. So not a great showing. But the offense, surprisingly, 8th overall, and that's with Jacoby Brissett. They're 14th in passing, 4th in rushing. That division It's close. It's still winnable, but the Browns do have a very tough schedule until Watson returns. They're at Baltimore, Cincinnati at home, at Miami, at Buffalo, Tampa Bay. And we know that trade deadline coming up in a couple weeks. So could be tough if they think, I imagine they're confident they can get through that stretch, still be in contention, but maybe make a couple moves to shore up that defense and get some guys back and get healthy and make a run. But they were, for me, I think could be buyers here in the next couple weeks.
I could see that because of the urgency of trying to, in the short term, make things happen. And even if in their minds are like, well, this was the, wages of sin, Deshaun Watson season, and it's really going to be next year. You don't want to necessarily go out by like this. And they need some guys on defense who don't fall down. Because if I were like Tom Brady and I was screaming at the Browns defense, I'd be like, stop falling down. Falling down is bad. That's not how you play defense. And that's what we saw. Did see the absence of Denzel Ward. There was a lot of jump ball to Devontae Parker, and Parker comes down with some. He gets flags on another one. It helps Zappe get confidence because he's moving the ball that way. So I wouldn't recommend the Browns doing it because they're very leveraged right now, but I could definitely see them doing it from hey, yeah, we get one run stuffer in here. Probably doesn't cost us a lot in terms of trade compensation. And we can start winning some of these games and feather the nest, so to speak, for Deshaun's return. By the way, there's a lot of Rondale Moore chatter. Aaron Schatz, the boss, comes in and says, like magnets, I don't know how Rondale Moore works. I don't know how the Cardinals' offense works. I don't understand what I'm watching when I watch it. And it seems like everyone is – somebody referred to them as the Madden AI. And Rondale Moore gets the Madden AI plays here. He's not just a screens and reverses guy, but for some reason they seem to think he is.
Yeah, he's I follow him a little bit too. He's from Louisville. Went to actually my rival high school, but watched him play in high school. Man, he was just kind of a side note. He was the fastest guy I had ever seen on a football field. And this is a few years ago. I was years out of high school, obviously, but that guy is electric. And we saw it was used a lot yesterday. Ended up having like 70-something yards, I think. They used him kind of crossing over the middle. And yeah, like we said, just that Arizona offense, just there's a lot of questions there.
Yeah, it's, hey, here's this concept, here's that concept. Like, it disappears from my mind as I'm watching it. Like, I don't understand what you're trying to establish with what you're doing. Everything's very horizontal. These formations come and go, and like one will work and you'll never see it again for like 3 weeks afterwards. And you've got these guys like Rondale Moore. I would think he's underutilized. I think you can use him occasionally as a deep threat, not just a shallow threat. There's ways of doing this rather than saying, let's bring Carolina's resident inconsistent malcontent into the fold here and see if that turns things around and gets everybody on the same page.
And that actually kind of takes us in. We'll start with the loser of the week this week because you've got Cliff Kingsbury. If you haven't already covered everything, I'll let you talk about that here now.
Yeah, it's kind of turned into the Cardinals circus here. So, yeah, my loser of the week is Kingsbury for all the things that we've mentioned here. The lack of rhyme and reason, the lack of a continuity in the game plans, the lack of ability to get Kyler Murray to do anything except to play these playground games. I think there's sort of a lack of articulation between him and Steve Keim, and it's bad. And I think we've covered it sufficiently. So who is your loser of the week?
Mine is the Jaguars defense. They were pretty bad this weekend. This comes from really a stat that I saw. They ended up being having the second worst defensive DVOA of week 6. And I saw it from Ryan Michael on Twitter, who I think it was a stats guy for Jags Insider or something.
Okay.
Sorry, Ryan. I don't remember exactly what it was. But Trevor Lawrence is the first quarterback in NFL history to have a 90% plus completion percentage on 20-plus passing attempts with 3+ total touchdowns and 0 turnovers and still lose the game. Now, I'm not sure how many quarterbacks qualify, especially with that 20-plus passing attempts, 90% completion percentage.
Right.
But that's a very good game from Trevor Lawrence. Had a 14-3 lead in the middle of the second quarter. They did have a string of punts, a few possessions in a row.
Yeah.
But came out, scored in the second half. They scored the go-ahead touchdown with 2:44 left, and that defense allowed Matt Ryan and the Colts to score. They won on a 3rd and 13 touchdown pass to Alec Pierce. So just it's hard. Your quarterback has a game like that, and give it up like that. That's tough to do, especially against the Colts. They dominated them the first time they came out, started out hot this week, and to give that up and lose that game against what was the worst offense in the league coming into this week.
Yeah, and I was going to, if we had done best call of the week, best coaching decision, that 3rd and 13 bomb up the sideline to Alec Pierce is probably going to be my choice because it looked like the play was going to be, we're going to do a crossing route. They were pretty close to field goal range. I think they were in field goal range.
Yeah.
Like, let's get in there. Let's get the kicker out there. Colts have had kicker issues. You've got this opportunity. And the Jaguars, I think the Jaguars defense fooled a lot of people, especially in the Colts game. And there was another game that they played very well in. They've got very little on the back seven. They really don't have a lot in the secondary in terms of guys who are going to win one-on-one matchups, et cetera. They've got speed at linebacker, but it's a lot of youth, a lot of rookie second-year guys at linebacker. Defensive line is pretty good, but the defensive line is full of guys that we talk about how good they're about to be. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they do get their sacks here and there, but it's not like, this is, the 49ers line when healthy coming at you. And you saw that when you watched that Colts-Jaguars game where Matt Ryan looked more like the Matt Ryan from a couple of years ago that we're used to, where he's sitting in the pocket. He's finding guys on shallow crosses that are getting open. He's finding guys on hitches that are getting open. And he's completing passes 5-6 yards that go 15 yards down the field because he's getting the ball on time to guys in space. That may be a sign of the Colts offense to come, but I think it's also more of a sign that the Jaguars are going to have more days like this for Trevor Lawrence, where you're going to have to be in shootouts if you want to get the win. And we're going to have to see if you can do things like convert fourth downs, which they had problems with yesterday, for Lawrence and the Jaguars to win those shootouts.
Yeah, and you mentioned the play where they scored, and looking at expecting a short pass, a run, something like that. They're in field goal range. I'm pulling up exactly where they were on that play. I know it was 3rd and 13 at the Jacksonville 32. So yeah, they're right there on Good Morning Football this morning. They were talking about, I forget who it was on the sideline, someone from NFL Network of their team, saying like the guys, even the Colts sideline, everyone thought they were running. Like, wait, wow. We're not running the ball. I thought we were going to run the ball, and it ends up being that bomb touchdown. So that was pretty funny. Like, even their own team was expecting them to just run it. That way they don't. It's 3rd and 13. You don't have to. It's not like you have to go for it on 4th down because you are in field goal range. You could, go someday if you were back on your own side, go deep because you're going to take a shot because you got to go for it. But yeah, everyone expected to run it, and then to hit that, it was really awesome for the Colts. I actually did pick them last week on our show. That was one I got right. I was like, despite the league worst defense, I do think the Colts come out and win it, and they saved me there at the end.
Right. Well, they were a team, and of course, I love picking on the Colts, but they were a team where it's like, obviously, they're not going to be 32nd in offense for the rest of this season. There's too much talent for that, and this was a demonstration. No, this team can start rising up a little bit. Got some help with some penalties along the way. And I'll say this, Pierce on that was a beautiful throw by Ryan. Pierce out physicals his defender on that. He has basically like shielded the defender away from making a play on that. Earlier in the game, he had a touchdown. Rookie Jelani Woods, a guy I really liked in college, just basically tosses. I think it was Lloyd, the linebacker, basically tosses him aside to catch the touchdown. Probably maybe should have been an OPI, but also as a linebacker, you have to stay involved in that play. You're not like the photographer getting shoved by Devontae Adams. You need to play, and that's a sign. Again, it's a sign of thing I think the Colts may be able to do, but it's also a sign the Jaguars are in trouble against better offenses if they're going to lose these sort of like physical matchups in the secondary.
Yeah, and you mentioned the one game that they kind of fooled people. The Colts game and the Chargers game was the other one where they just dominated that whole game. But I guess we could say the Colts are a big winner of the week, but you've got someone else as your winner of the week this week, and who is that?
We've had so much fun talking about the feel-good Geno Smith story over the course of the last couple of weeks, and the feel sort of good Cooper Rush story. You felt good, but they had to have that squicky. There's a cornerback controversy, so you don't feel good about it. We've forgotten to feel good about Marcus Mariota. Mariota went out there against a depleted 49ers defense. They were missing a couple of guys on their front seven this week, but has a big game throwing the ball and running the ball against the San Francisco 49ers and pulled out a 28-14 win. And the thing that's amazing me is that the Falcons are actually entertaining to watch. Okay, we talked at the beginning of the show how it's like, well, the Packers are not a fun watch right now. You switch to NFL Red Zone, you're wearing your Yankees gear. It's not pleasant to watch that. And maybe it's lower expectations, but when you've got Mariota in the pistol with a fullback next to him and a running back in the backfield, who knows? Kyle Pitts might even be on the field on this particular play. And they're going to run a speed option or an ISO option or a play action fake and take a deep shot to Orlando Zacchaeus or Drake London. And everything is very misdirection oriented, and everything is very, I guess I call it collegiate. It looks like that sort of mid-major program offense, but it's effective. It's effective because Mariota's playing very tough, very physical as a runner, and doing what he does best as a passer, which is delivering short touch passes, particularly over the middle of the field. So big comeback season for Marcus Mariota. Big winner of the week for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned Kyle Pitts in that game. He was thought about having him as my winner of the week. He did finally score a touchdown this year and got into the end zone, but still ended up only having 3 catches on 19 yards, only 3 targets. They didn't throw the ball a ton, only 14 targets in this game. Mariota didn't throw the ball. Only had 1 incompletion, Mariota did, so again, big game from him. But I went with Allen Robinson this week. There's been a lot of talk from him, especially in the fantasy circle, but just in general, of him not producing, being brought in to be that number 2 guy, and really been struggling. After week 1, there was all the talk, and it was kind of the squeaky wheel theory there. He ended up getting 5 targets, 4 catches for 53 and a touchdown. Ended up the next 3 games, 2 catches, 3 catches for a total of 42 yards. And then this week goes out 6 targets, gets 5 catches for 63 yards, both season highs, and scores a touchdown.
Yeah.
So really good to see that from him. He's seen at least 5 targets in every game since week 1, and this one was where he finally produced. Needs to be more consistent moving forward, and that could be on even, the Rams offense just in general, kind of looking to him more, creating more for him. But, Cooper Kupp is still going to lead that team in targets, but a really promising game from Allen Robinson that could really help open up Cooper Kupp even more, and maybe the attention or keeping the attention on Kupp could open Allen Robinson more and use him a lot more. So good to see that. And then Ben Skoranek as well, scoring a touchdown in that game too on the little end around. So that was cool.
Yeah, and Robinson had sort of a jump ball fade type touchdown. He also had kind of a jump 50-50 ball along the sidelines earlier in the game for a big game. And that's one of the things Matthew Stafford has to get some comfort with. It's like you got man coverage against this guy. Robinson excels at winning in those situations. If he looks covered, if that's not, a Jalen Ramsey level cornerback on him, you can throw that ball in there, and there's a good chance he's going to come get it. And I think they saw that J.C. Horn of the Panthers, one of the few guys in the Panthers you're really worried about who might be getting traded as we speak, was on Cooper Kupp detail. So it's like get the ball to Robinson. But they need that. They need that consistency. And, yeah, if you get those 2 things combined, you can start to open up this Rams offense, which really, really needs it.
Yeah, and Allen, and he's no Calvin Johnson, but like back when he had Calvin Johnson, where you could throw it to him and he's gonna win that game. Like, obviously he's not Calvin, but a similar type of player that Stafford's had before that he could kind of get back into doing that with Robinson. And it's funny you mentioned the one on the sideline he had. That's when they got reviewed. That was almost one of chosen my winner of the week. It was on some of the shows this morning as like a hidden highlight. But it was during the review, Allen Robinson and Corey Littleton talking to the ref. And Robinson's pointing up, like saying he caught it, and Corey Littleton's there mocking him, being like, doing this.
Yeah.
That was one of the funniest things I saw all weekend.
It was like a Mr. Bean sketch or something like that. I didn't know what I was watching. It was very funny, though. It was very funny. Folks, by the way, are still asking about the Robbie Anderson trade. And, my thought on this is that the Cardinals should be selling pieces at this point at 2-4, not bringing in more pieces, even though Marquise Brown is hurt. And one thing I have not seen is the compensation for this trade. And I was just trying to look it up here. And if this is, day 3 pick X, then it's like, well, it's fine for both parties.
Here it is. Look, as you said that, the tweet just came through from Adam Schefter now. Cardinals in exchange for a 6th round pick in 24 and a 7th round pick in 25.
Oh, God. Well, then fine. Take them. There you go. That's fine. It's fine. It shows you what Robbie Anderson's esteem is when he's getting kicked off the sidelines after the coach was fired, where his like real impact was. So
some of those situations too always kind of confuse me maybe not confuse me, but make me wonder with Robbie Anderson. It's like, all right, maybe they weren't planning on trading him right away, but you kick him out of the game. And at this point it's like, all right, he's probably never going to play again. You kind of lose some trade leverage. Same with what's going on with Cam Akers being scratched and him basically saying he's not going to play again, going to try and trade him. But it's like, if other teams know you're just going to cut him, then, you don't have to trade for him. Maybe there's compensation stuff. I'm not as up to speed with like how that works of signing people, teams cut, that type of stuff. But it's like, you lose a little bit of leverage, especially with 2 weeks left. I think 2 weeks until the trade deadline. Yeah,
you lose the leverage, and the Panthers probably felt like, Wilkes and McAdoo have to get through this year. And they had probably looked at, if this is how it's going to be, we've got to bench this guy. And once we bench this guy, then it's like get anything. And again, Steve Keim didn't get ripped off by these are 2024 and 2025 draft picks. Basically, that lets him cut to the front of the line and get the guy that he wants there. But the one difference with Akers is a speed wide receiver has that value no matter what. Because I can talk about Anderson's inconsistency or like, he's not necessarily always with the program. The dude can fly, and a dude can fly has a role in an NFL offense, even if you're sending him out there to run decoy routes. The running back, I don't know what Akers' value will be moving forward. He is not McCaffrey. It's not like, you can plug him in to be Tom Brady's safety valve. He's another kind of plugger and grinder out there. I don't know what the Rams think they're going to get for something.
And he hasn't looked great either. He came back from the Achilles injury in the playoffs and did not look good. Hasn't really looked great this year. And then with this going on, I think they said football and something else, basically differences between philosophies or something.
Oh,
is kind of what it's come down to is what I saw this morning. I think. So
Aaron Rodgers sends positive vibes to all players in the league who have different running backs who have different philosophies with their coaches.
Maybe he'll push to bring him into Green Bay and have 3 running backs now.
Full house, pistol, diamond formation. Run those plays the Giants are running with them. Achieve success, reach the playoffs.
Yeah, and speaking of the Giants, I want to go back there too. I would imagine we talked about this last week, and talking about we talked the Browns potentially being buyers. The Giants really helped the Browns, that really all of the AFC North by beating the Ravens, keeping that division really close. And I think it's just solidified it. It pretty much is Brian Daboll's coach of the year is Brian Daboll's to lose. We talked about it last week. I think he pretty much solidified his front runner status. I wouldn't be surprised if he was a very, very heavy favorite at this point, because Arthur Smith, I think, could be up there.
Arthur Smith could be up there, but 5-1 is 5-1.
Yeah.
And I'm going to look it up right now. And I thought you were veering towards, maybe the Giants should be buyers. And the fact is that they can't be buyers. They're in such bad shape in terms of future cap space, et cetera, that they have to sort of, no matter what happens this year, kind of use it to consolidate things. Yeah. So they can't be buyers, but of course they can hold what they have. Brian Daboll is at plus 450 for Coach of the Year. Folks, I think there is still value there. I believe it was plus 600, plus 450. Nick Sirianni is at plus 150.
Oh, Sirianni, that's right.
I don't think he's going to get it. There's a couple of reasons for it. If you look at the history of the voting for Coach of the Year, it's usually a first-year coach. It is rarely a second-year coach who had a good year and then had a better year. That's not how it goes. It's like it's either first-year coach or it's like, one of the John Harbaugh's back. Oh, Belichick had another year. Let's give it to him. So it really looks like it would be Daboll's award to lose at plus 450. I'd be jumping on that right now.
Yeah, and we saw Matt LaFleur came in and went 13-3 the first 2-3 years. I don't think he won. I think he came in like second all 3 years.
Right. Once if you don't get it that first year, then you're an established coach. It's like, this guy's going to do it every year. And LaFleur, of course, it's like, well, you've got Aaron Rodgers. That's what you're doing. You've got Aaron Rodgers. Sirianni, there's a little bit of, it's really Howie Roseman's team. That's kind of how it's perceived a lot around here, and I think around the league. And Sirianni, his personality doesn't bubble forth into the world.
Yep.
Like he's a guy, I mean, I kind of see what he's doing. I usually call it bra energy, because he's just like a backslapping type of guy. But like you go around the league, like everyone knows what Cliff Kingsbury looks like. They know his vibe. They know Sean McVay's vibe. They know some of these tough guy coaches. Sirianni's just the coach. So it's hard to like, I'm going to vote for him.
Wasn't it him that had, I forget what he was even for, the rock, paper, scissors competition? I don't remember what it was for. I'm sure you do.
It was at the combine, and a couple of coaches do this. And a couple of GMs, they'll play rock, paper, scissors with the guys. But like he talked about it and joked about it. And then people started asking the players about it. And I don't understand the psychology of some of this scouting combine stuff. It's like, you have 15 minutes with this kid. But you see, let's play rock, paper, scissors. The kid starts joking around a little bit, and you get a less programmed version of this young man who's been taught to come in like, coach, and we'll give it 110%. That DWI from 2 years ago is behind me. They're going to say the same stuff to you. Yeah. Throw rock, paper, scissors at them and then say, well, why'd you pick rock there?
Yeah.
And then
you pick rock, you're a tough guy, you're a good prospect. You pick scissors, you're a cutthroat guy, you're going to do whatever it takes.
Papers, you're flexible. Yeah. You're flexible, right. And you get all that kind of thing. So that's a Sirianni type thing, but that's it, playing hoops. I think at one combine he played hoops with the guys.
Okay.
Yeah, like had a little basket and like a little foam ball and played hoops with them and stuff like that. Like that's the mentality. I don't know if that gets you coach of the year. I mean, it'll be different if the Eagles go 17-0.
Absolutely, yeah. At that point, I think he'd win it. But yeah, I think we can all agree Daboll is the most likely, and yeah, good odd that at plus 450 is still some good value there for him. That about does it here for us. In a little bit early today. Before we go though, don't forget you can get that free $100 from Underdog Fantasy using promo code Outsiders, even in states where traditional prop betting is not available. They'll match your deposit up to $100. Again, promo code Outsiders. You can get in on some of the Monday Night Football action tonight on there. Also, don't forget to sign up for FO Plus at footballoutsiders.com/subscribe for NFL betting picks, fantasy advice, premium stats, and articles. You get an ad-free experience, and then don't forget you get access to all of the stats today on Monday versus having to wait till tomorrow like everyone who does not have FO Plus. And then last but certainly not least, join us on the Football Outsiders Discord for in-game conversation for every game. They'll be on there tonight for the Monday Night Football game between the Broncos and the Chargers. Mike, thanks for joining me as always. Everyone out there, thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Go Melvin Gordon, 15.5 yards. Let's get it done.
And go Yankees.
And go Yankees.